Lu Kang. One was a granduncle of Lu Xun, the other was his second son. Their elder Lu's family and kin numbered some 100 members, but over half of them had died of starvation or in war towards the end of the Han dynasty, so he raised the orphaned Lu Xun from a young age. When Houhanshu's forces, led by Sun Ce, were about to attack Lujiang, he sent Lu Xun and his family back to safety at their home at Wu Commandery. Lu Xun became the head of the household after his granduncle passed away, but his eldest son Lu Yan died at a young age, so Xun's Marquis title was inherited by his second son, who was also called Lu Kang. He grew into a prominent general within Wu during the reign of its final emperor Sun Hao. Much like his father, he was faithful to his state and very talented. He had excellent moral conduct worthy of praise. He was also able to handle the overall situation well without neglecting details. He was thus able to accomplish such great tasks. Lu Kang's grandfather was connected to a plot to overthrow the emperor during the early Han dynasty, so was implicated, arrested, and tortured. He was eventually released, then placed under house arrest until he died of old age. As his son was well known for his morally upright character, he was repeatedly asked to serve in office but refused. Lu Kang was already known for being virtuous and diligent at a young age. He accepted his nomination into office by Li Su and was appointed as a minor officer in Wu Commandery. He was next assigned as the prefect of Gaocheng County, which was very remote and its security was poor, so every household was armed with bows and arrows. The previous prefects forced the locals to build and repair the city walls, but upon arrival, Lu Kang freed the labourers, so the people were very pleased with him. He then governed so well that even the criminal activity ceased. His achievements were reported to the Han court, who were very impressed. They promoted him once more before sending him to administrate 3 other commanderies, which he also governed well. After Li Su was executed for committing crimes, Lu Kang brought the body back to his home in Yingchuan Commandery, where he mourned his death at the funeral. At the time when Emperor Ling wanted to build great bronze statues, even though the treasury was unable to finance it, he issued a decree to increase the taxes on the people and to recruit labour from them. Lu Kang had seen the floods and droughts firsthand, so knew the people were suffering, so he wrote to dissuade the emperor, who was not impressed with what he called slander and disrespect. Lu was brought before the Minister of Justice for questioning, where Liu Dai carefully examined the case. He vouched for Lu's freedom, which resulted in Lu's dismissal from office before being sent home. It appears he was missed, however, as very quickly he was recalled back to serve at the court. In the 180s, a bandit chief named Huang Rang from Lujiang allied with other tribes from Jiangxia, where they formed an army of over 100,000 men. Lu Kang assumed office as administrator, with the task of suppressing the rebels as they attacked and conquered 4 counties within the region. He successfully defeated Huang Rang, then received praise from the Han court. He then carried on to uphold law and order. When Emperor Xian came into power in the 190s, Lu Kang was aware of the high risks involved with paying tribute to the emperor, as the convoy could easily come under attack. Despite this, he sent his men along anyway, who managed to successfully pay the tribute, so he was promoted and had his income raised vastly. At the time when Houhanshu planned to attack Shou province, but realised he was running short on supplies, he sent a messenger to Lujiang requesting 30,000 hu of grain from Lu Kang, but he viewed Yuan as a traitor, so refused to acknowledge him. He proceeded to fortify Lujiang's defences and prepared for war. The army that arrived to attack was being led by Sun Ce, who had a personal vendetta against Lu Kang because he once visited him but was not granted permission to meet him in person. During the 2-year siege, little Lu Xun was sent away from the danger, plus many loyal subordinates and soldiers on leave returned to defend the city for Lu Kang. He died of illness whilst the siege was still underway at around the age of 70, and the Lujiang commandery soon fell to Sun Ce's forces. The younger Lu Kang was not only Lu Xun's second son, but ironically he was also Sun Ce's maternal grandson. He was born in 226, but as his father was a thrifty man, he left little to no wealth for his family. He inherited his father's mantle at 19 years old, but he was a lot less involved in politics, and he mainly served in the military. He was commissioned to command the 5,000 troops who had been under his father's command. Together, they escorted his father's coffin from Wuchang back to Lu's ancestral home at Wu Commandery. After the burial, he went to Jianyi to pay his respects to Sun Quan, who showed him a list of 20 offences allegedly committed by Lu Xun. Kang was not allowed to meet with anyone whilst he was interrogated by his lord and a panel of officials. He cooperated and responded truthfully throughout the process, as Sun Quan's anger towards Lu Xun gradually subsided. The next year, he was made a general of the household, then ordered to switch posts with Zhuge Ke, moving from Wuchang to Xiujiang. Before he departed, he had the city walls repaired and renovated the head residence, whilst also leaving his fruit orchards intact. Zhuge felt ashamed when he arrived to see the well-maintained home, as his own garrison was in poor condition when he left. 5 years later, in 251, Lu Kang went to Jianyi seeking medical treatment. When his condition improved, he went to leave but was stopped by Sun Quan, who had tears in his eyes. "Previously, I believed slanderous rumours and failed to understand your father's well-meaning advice. I have let you down. I have burnt all the documents containing the allegations against your father so nobody can ever see them." Sun Quan passed away the next year, where he was succeeded as emperor by his youngest, Sun Liang, who promoted Lu Kang to general of vehement might. He was sent to assist Zhuge Dan's rebellion in 257, and even though it was ultimately suppressed by Wei, Lu Kang did manage to defeat some Wei forces in battle. In 259, Sun Chen forced the other officials to depose Sun Liang before he falsely declared to the people that he suffered from psychosis and was therefore incompetent. Sun Xiu, who succeeded him, relocated Lu Kang to Shiling, where he held jurisdiction over lands from Guan Yu's shallows to Baidi Cheng. The following year, he was granted imperial authority, but Sun Xiu died in 264, whereafter his nephew Sun Hao became the new emperor of Wu. Under his new lord, Lu Kang received yet another promotion and was made the nominal governor of Yi province. When Zhu Ran's son, Shi Ji, died in 270, Lu Kang was put in charge of military affairs over 5 counties in Shiling, which he oversaw from his administrative centre. He soon became worried when he heard about the many flaws in the Wu government's policies, so wrote a memorial to Sun Hao. He proposed 17 different policy changes, but they were all lost over time. "I heard that through promoting morality, the minority can become the majority, and through the conditioning of strengths, a dangerous situation can become a safe one. We are now surrounded by enemies, and we face more complex situations compared to the Warring States period. Our state has no allies outside. Internally, it's not as strong as Western Shu was. Our policies are not effective, and the people are not well governed. I am suggesting that we should not solely rely on natural defences, as these are final resorts, and not solutions that wise people would consider first. I often think about how the 7 warring states ended and how the Han dynasty collapsed. Whether I read about such things in books or experience the danger myself, I am filled with worry so deep that I cannot sleep well at night, nor have my meals in peace. The blood of the imperial clan runs through me, and I have received much grace from the state. My personal fame and glory cannot be separated from those of the states, so I should serve the state faithfully until I die. I cannot relax, and I am always concerned about the state's well-being to the point where I feel sorry for myself. To serve properly means to never deceive the ruler, even if I have to offend him. As a subject of our state, I am bound to defend it with my life. I humbly propose the 17 amendments to our policies." On another occasion, he spoke up against the corruption in the Wu government. Herding was abusing his power, whilst eunuchs were interfering in state affairs, so Lu Kang wrote another memorial to Sun Hao. "I heard that in order to establish a state and inherit the work of one's predecessors, one should not employ persons of vile character. The canon of Yao cautioned against placing faith in those whose actions do not match their words. Learned people of the past abhor such behaviour, while Confucius sighed and lamented when he spoke of this. Such villains existed throughout history, and they caused the downfall of empires. They do not understand important principles, and they have short-sighted views of the world. Even if they are nice to you and seem very conscientious, they should never be trusted with important responsibilities. Besides, they cannot change their contemptible character, and they switch allegiances very quickly. They fear that they will lose what they possess, so they'll often resort to any means to defend their personal interests. If you intend to give them important appointments and much authority, and expect them to behave as role models and uphold morality, this is certainly impossible. Of all the current officials in the imperial court, not many of them are exemplary talents, but some of them came from affluent backgrounds and have been well educated, while others of humble origins are hard-working and constantly striving for self-improvement, so their abilities should be tapped into. Incompetent officials should be dismissed, so the government can be restructured and cleared of corruption. The Battle of Shiling occurred in 272 when Buchan started a rebellion, wanting to defect to the Jin dynasty. When Lu Kang heard of this, he sent his officers Zuo Yi, Wu Yan, Tai Gong and others to lead separate forces towards Xiling as directly as possible. He ordered defensive structures to be built all the way from Xixi to Guxi to create an encirclement around Buchan's position, whilst at the same time he repelled attacks from Jin's forces. His men worked day and night to complete the construction works as if the enemy had already arrived, which resulted in all his soldiers being tired and worn out. They argued that with their current strength they could attack Bu Chan and destroy him before Jin's forces showed up. Lu Kang had previously overseen the construction of Shiling's defences personally and believed it to be very stable with sufficient supplies. The officers repeatedly urged Lu Kang to attack, but he refused, not wanting to get trapped between two armies. He continued to focus on building up defences instead. Lei Tan soon arrived using kind words to persuade Lu Kang, so he eventually relented. To prove he was right, he ordered the attack, then as expected, his armies were driven back. The officers very quickly gave up on the idea of attacking, and so went back to constructing defences. The moment the Jin forces led by Yang Hu were approaching Jiangling, Lu Kang decided to attack Shiling, but his officers did not agree. He explained that Jiangling's fortifications are strong, and it has sufficient troops to defend it, so there's no need to worry. Even if the enemy captures Jiangling, they won't be able to hold it for long, so our losses will be minimal. But if we lose Shiling, the tribes in the southern hills will be affected, and this will lead to a serious problem. I'd rather abandon Jiangling than give up on capturing Shiling. Besides, Jiangling is already very well defended in the first place. Jiangling was located on flat land at an easily accessible location. Lu Kang had ordered Zhang Xian to construct a dike to block the nearby river's flow, as to create a barrier of water around the city. Yang Hu schemed to turn this to his advantage. He made preparations to sell supplies to the city whilst also spreading rumours that he was going to destroy the dike. Lu Kang saw through the plot, then ordered Zhang Xian to destroy the dike himself. His shocked officers once again tried to dissuade him, but he ignored them. Yang Hu was taken back when he arrived to see the dike had already been destroyed. With no choice, he began transporting the supplies on land, which resulted in a massive amount of wasted time and effort. Xu Yin led forces from Badong Commandery towards Jianping, whilst Yang Zhao led troops towards Shiling. Zhang Xian was sent to reinforce Jiangling. Sun Zun patrolled the south river bank to resist Yang Hu, whilst Liu Lu and Zhu Wan were sent to resist Xu Yin's attacks. Lu Kang personally led 3 armies to resist Yang Zhao, where he made use of the defensive structures he had built earlier. 2 of Lu Kang's officers defected to Jin, but he foresaw that they would focus their attacks on his weak spot, the undisciplined tribal troops that were less willing to follow his orders. The tribal unit was quickly replaced with veteran soldiers who trusted Lu Kang completely. When Yang Zhao concentrated his attacks on that unit without knowing they'd been replaced, the archers retaliated by raining arrows down on the enemy, inflicting heavy casualties. Yang Zhao ran out of ideas after a month of failing to overcome Lu Kang, whereafter he started to withdraw his forces one night. Lu wanted to pursue, but was wary of being flanked by Bu Chan, who was still holed up in Shiling. He feigned an attack, which caused the Jin troops to flee and abandon their equipment. This was followed up by an attack from a small group of soldiers, who inflicted a crushing defeat on their enemy. Yang Hu and the other Jin generals also withdrew their armies once they heard of the attack, which gave Lu Kang his chance to finally conquer Shiling. Bu Chan, his family, and high-ranking officers were all executed for treason, while the 10,000 other residents were pardoned, but only after Lu Kang made a special request on their behalf to the Wu court. His great deeds and victory here earned him the respect and favour of his men, but he still behaved in the same manner as before. Lu Kang wrote to Sun Hao after the Battle of Shiling, once he heard that Shu Ying had been imprisoned. "I sincerely hope that your majesty can pardon and release Lu Xuan, but I also heard that Shu Ying has been thrown into prison. His father, Shuazong, served the late emperor, and Shu Ying himself has inherited his father's fame and made some achievements, so he should be pardoned. I'm worried the judicial officers will not investigate the case thoroughly and end up killing innocents and disappointing the masses. I beg your majesty to pardon Shu Ying and relax our laws. This is beneficial to our state." An uncanny friendship between Lu Kang and Yang Hu emerged. Upon returning to Jin, Yang Hu promoted morality and civility, which impressed many Wu citizens. He gave careful thought and decided to treat his enemies as well as he treated his own people. He used benevolence and kindness to overcome tyranny and cruelty in Wu, change the perceptions of the people in Wu, and reduce their fighting spirit. In this way, he earned himself a good reputation for being kind and accepting towards his enemies. The people of Wu had probably never encountered a foe like him. The Wu troops at the border were told by Lu Kang, "If they govern with virtue, and we administer our state like tyrants, we'll lose the war without even having to fight. I hope that you can guard the border well and not stir up problems over trivial matters. If cattle from one side accidentally strayed to the other, the owners would be allowed to retrieve it. If somebody was injured whilst hunting at the border, the other side would send them home safely." Lu Kang fell sick one time and received medicine from Yang Hu, who had it specially prepared. Despite his subordinates advising against it, he took it without suspecting anything. The people often commented on the relationship between Lu Kang and Yang Hu. Some believed they were not fulfilling their loyalties to their respective states. When Sun Hao reprimanded Lu Kang for this, he replied, "Ordinary peasants in the countryside have to keep their promises, much less me, a government official. If I do not live the virtues, I will appear as a stark contrast to Yang Hu. This does not result in any harm to Yang Hu." Lu Kang was aware his lord was a tyrant, his state was declining, and his people were starting to admire the enemy. He adopted a similar strategy to Yang Hu in an effort to gain an edge over his rival. He strived to inspire others to defeat their enemy without using military force, instead subduing them with virtue. A single soldier can defend his country by being conservative. A villain uses superiority in numbers to bully others. A slave resorts to trickery to protect himself. A wise person considers using military force to achieve peace. Ancient sages and men of virtue become role models for later generations because they sacrifice their personal interests to achieve the greater good whilst maintaining the high ground. Lu Kang wrote yet another memorial to Sun Hao whilst constant war waged between Wu and Jin and the people were deeply suffering. In the past, the states of Qi and Lu fought 3 battles, and Lu won 2, but was conquered by Qi eventually. Why? That's because Lu was not able to accurately assess its position in the war. Now our forces have scored some victories, but our gains are not sufficient to compensate for our losses. It is written clearly in the historical text that the people hate war. I sincerely hope your majesty can follow the advice of the ancients. Stop the war, focus on rest and recuperation, and look out for the enemy's weaknesses. If not, your majesty will regret later. In 273, Lu Kang was appointed as Grand Administrator and Governor of Jing. He fell sick in summertime and wrote a final letter to Sun Hao. Shiling and Jianping are the borders of our state, as they are located downstream and are facing the enemy on 2 sides. If the enemy sends a naval fleet to sail along the river at God's speed, they will arrive at our gates very quickly, and it will be too late to call for reinforcements from any other areas. This is critical to the survival of our state, and is much more serious as compared to losing a small piece of land at the border. My late father, who was stationed at the western border, once said that Shiling was the west gateway into our state, and that it was easy to defend, but could also be easily lost. If we don't strengthen our defences at Shiling, we'll not only lose one commandery, but also the entire Jing province as well. If Shiling comes under attack, your majesty must mobilise all available forces in the state to reinforce Shiling. During my service there throughout the years, I came to realise what my late father meant. Earlier on, I asked for 30,000 elite troops, but the officials in charge refused to answer my request. Bu Chan's rebellion has taken quite the toll on Shiling. I am in charge of thousands of li of lands, and I am surrounded by enemies on all sides, our powerful nemesis outside, and various tribes inside, and I only have a few 10,000 troops with me. They are weary from fighting wars over a long period of time, and may not be able to adapt to sudden changes in the situation. In my humble opinion, I feel that all the princes are still very young and have yet to be involved in state affairs, so your majesty can appoint advisors to tutor and guide them. Some of their personal guards could even be reassigned to be reserve soldiers instead. I also heard that many eunuchs are secretly recruiting personal militias, and many men have joined these militias to avoid conscription. I suggest that you issue an order for a thorough investigation so as to catch all those draft dodgers and send them to those areas lacking manpower. In this way, I can muster 80,000 troops, allow my current men to relax, and be fairer in terms of giving out rewards and punishments. If I do not have sufficient troops under my command, I have no confidence I can fulfill my duty well. If I die, I hope that your majesty can pay closer attention to the western border. I sincerely wish that you can accept and consider my advice. In this way, I will not have died in vain. Lu Kang passed away sometime between the 20th of August and 17th of September in the autumn of 274. His 6 sons shared command of their father's troops, and all served as generals in Wu. When the Jin general Wang Jun led the navy and captured the Wu territory along the way, Lu Kang's eldest son was killed in battle. Jin's invasion of Wu went just as Lu Kang had foreseen, during which another of his sons was also killed. After Wu fell, 3 of his other sons all came to serve Jin, but they were all executed along with their families during the War of the 8 Princes. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.